Welcome to Live with Sara and Tasha. I'm Sara Hodson, the founder and CEO at Live Well Exercise Clinic.
And if we have not met before, I am Tasha McCrae. I am the Vice President of Brand and Culture here at LiveWell.
And Tasha and I are the original clinical exercise physiologists, or as many of you know as CEPs and health coaches. And we really help to create everything that you experience today at LiveWell. Over 20 years of experience working with people just like you to help you take control of your health and live life to the fullest.
And Sara and I are so excited that you've decided to join us today. We host these calls to just share our passion about the power of exercise and lifestyle change to help you live your life to the fullest. I'm listening to a new book that all talks about what lights you up and the meaning that your work can bring. And these types of calls are really it for me. Oh, we've lost Sara for a second. So if you decide that you would like to unmute, but to show your faces, we'd love to see your smiling faces on the screen, but please know that we are recording this so that other people who didn't get a chance to join us live can watch it later. So if you can see your face, it means that we can see your face on camera. So do whatever you're most comfortable with. And feel free to use the chat function to join in on the conversation. We have everybody muted as they come into the call so that we can get a nice clear recording for that replay. But please join in the chat. We do read it. We love to hear your comments and what you are saying. So,
And Tash, what I'll do is I'll do my best to try to. Can you hear me a little bit?
Yeah.
Maybe what I'll do is I'm just gonna walk around the corner. So I'll let you start. I'll stay muted and I'll just reposition, see if I get a better connection.
Okay, you sound pretty good
Okay.
right now, just to let you know.
Okay,
So
thanks.
today we are going to be talking about dealing with setbacks. And I think this is a really important topic because often we just expect change to kind of work linearly. So we want to see like a constant improvement one day after the next. And that's not really a realistic expectation when we're talking about changing. We actually see sort of more of an ebb and flow. It's kind of like when we talk about weight. You never see weight drop if you're trying to lose weight. What you see is this kind of up and down that we want to see going in the right trend or direction. And it's the same with any change. You're going to come across situations where you have a setback or you have a relapse. And what we often find ourselves saying in that situation is, I blew it. And that's what we're trying to get around here or talk about today is that, in fact, you didn't blow it because relapse is a normal part of the change process. And so the key here is just to catch a setback relatively early and then minimize its impact on your change process rather than going, heck, I blew it, and throwing your hands up in the air and going, I guess this isn't the right plan for me or or I'm just never going to get it. Some people do. And then we can start this whole spiral of negative self-talk when really these setbacks and relapses are totally just part of the change. So we can use the trans-theoretical model of behavior change in order to sort of help understand how a human goes through change. And this model suggests that for every behavior, there's a stage of readiness to make change. So you might be really ready in one area with one particular behavior to make change, let's say exercise, where you might be completely not ready to make change on another area, let's say diet. So each behavior is a little bit different. So understanding this trans theoretical model can help us understand why it's easier to make some changes than it is to make others. And again, stop beating ourselves up about the fact, like, why can't I just get on this? It just may be that you're in not the right stage of change. And there's things you can do to move from one stage to another. So let's quickly go through this model. We won't spend too much time on it, just so you can understand it better. And then we'll look at it in context of relapse or setbacks.
Okay, and I know it is loud behind me, but is this okay? This is a better connection, I think.
All right.
Is the background noise okay, Tasha?
Yeah, we can hear it, but I think we can work with it.
Okay, great. So as Tasha was sharing, we have these different stages that we walk through, and I think that many of us are going to identify, if you haven't heard these stages before, as we kind of talk about them. I think you'll probably be able to relate them to things even right now in your life, like, okay, I am kind of contemplating that, or so forth. So let's walk through them. The first one is really pre-contemplation, meaning it's things that are not really in your sphere of influence right now. They're not really in your sphere of thinking. This is basically where the behavior that we may end up wanting to change in the future is simply just not on our radar. We haven't gotten to that level of awareness. And I don't know if you've heard us talk about, at LiveWell, oftentimes our members, and many of you, I think, could relate to this. You come to us for exercise because, it's kind of an ingrained thing within us that, oh, I should move more, I should exercise more, I should walk more. My doctor told me I should exercise. But then all of a sudden, as you start exercising, you start to unlock almost these new doors or new opportunities or more levels of your health. You say, okay, well, now you really want to work on sleeping better, or now I want to work. I didn't even realize that was an area in my life I needed to work on. Those are areas of pre-contemplation. And we can kind of be in denial sometimes that change is even needed in that area, or simply just not see the importance yet. And then after pre-contemplation, we have contemplation. And contemplation is that first moment where the thought actually enters your mind. And during this stage, we know that we should change, but we're just not really sure that we want to, maybe. We haven't quite connected it yet to the next stages of thinking. So I think all of us can relate to this stage immensely. Someone in the stage is thinking, one day I will get around to that. This is I'll do this maybe next week, in the summer I'll do that, or in January, I'm sure that's when I'll start it. Or, I think that we even hear some people saying right now, I'll get back to my regular exercise routine in the fall when the summer's over. This is kind of contemplation, right? And it's this idea that it's in the future. And I think that we're in a really interesting point in time right now as we start to see our provinces start to open up and restart, coming out of this COVID pandemic, that health is on the tip of our tongue. And this is an area where I believe there are probably millions of Canadians in this contemplation stage of, I know I need to improve my health. I don't quite know maybe what I need to exactly do quite yet, but I know that one day I need to get around to this. I'm really, really, really thinking about it. I think health is on all of our minds. So that is contemplation.
Yeah, such a good point. And as we go through these stages, think about sort of maybe behaviors that you could identify you're in the stage. So, as Sara is saying, pre-contemplation, you often can't think of a behavior that you're in pre-contemplation. It's totally off your radar. It may be something that somebody else in your life mentions to you, and you're like, "What? I don't see why I would bother to make that change." And then contemplation is something again that you're starting to go, yeah, I don't even know if I want to make a change there, but it's on my radar that I could make a change. Maybe one day I'll get on that. So think about what are those behaviors that you are in that contemplation stage with. Once you sort of like it's on your radar, we move into what we call preparation. And that's where you're actively thinking about how to bring this change into your life. So, oh, um, maybe I should go out walking more, or maybe I should think about including more vegetarian meals in my diet. You're over at the chapters looking at cookbooks types of things. Those are preparation type. Like by the time you're getting to start looking at cookbooks, you're moving maybe into action, but you're collecting your physical and emotional resources. So the cookbook is a bridge, maybe, and you're starting to experiment with those new ideas. And then finally, you get to a point where you're ready to take action. And you've probably seen this in your own life. Like suddenly one day it clicks and you're like, I'm doing it. I'm going for it. You've moved from contemplation to action. And that's when you actually start to change the behavior in question. I always, smoking is such an easy one. Luckily, not as many people smoking these days, or at least not smoking cigarettes. But this is a really easy, you kind of, I'm contemplating, I should quit. I'm starting to prepare. I'm setting a date. I'm talking to my doctor about options. And then the day comes and we decide we're going to quit. So smoking can be an easy way to visualize this model. So again, for us at Live Well, this is when we're setting those weekly practice plans. We're engaging in the behaviors that we're hoping to develop into a habit. So if you're at Live Well, you're already in action on your exercise. But you may be, you may be at different stages with different types of activities or behaviors.
I don't know if you saw what I put in the chat, Tasha, but Tasha lives around the corner from me, so she comes over often, and she will likely agree with what I am admittedly, I am identifying and admitting that I'm only in the contemplation phase. But at least I'm in a phase. Pre-contemplation would be bad. Pre-contemplation may require intervention on behalf of me gardening, weeding my garden. But
so Sarah's saying she's contemplating weeding her new garden that is overgrown. So contemplation would be pre-contemplation, I don't even see it, but the neighbors are saying, hey, what should you be doing about that garden? And you're like, what? Contemplation is going, yeah, I got to get around to this. Preparation means she's going to buy the garden weasel and taking action. Planning, yes. Taking action is when we actually feel a little sweat on the brow out there.
And in the sense of community and knowing that we will let ourselves down, but we're less likely to let down a friend. Tasha, would you like to join me in weeding my garden just for a sense of accountability?
Sure, Sarah. I'll go over and help you. But you can hear from me when I painting the house.
Oh, you have a lovely garden. So I feel like that'll be minimal work for me. So I'm in.
No. House painting. That's where I need help.
Oh, house painting. I'm not good at that. I'm not.
I love it.
But I'll do it, but I'm just not good at it. Okay, my turn, right, Tash?
Yes.
So the next stage is maintenance. And we often, again, think of maintenance as almost a plateau. And I think we have to think of maintenance as a little bit more, there's a flow to, it's fluid maintenance, right? And sometimes it's really good to even practice maintenance, because maintenance in and of itself is a very important stage. And so during maintenance, that's usually when we have engaged in a behavior for anywhere from 12 to 24 weeks, so 3 to 6 months. And it really has become part of our routine. And again, depending on that behavior, some behaviors take longer to cultivate than others. So I'm kind of throwing in there 3 to 6 months as a middle ground. But maintenance is really where we are now in a groove, right? But there are things that can impact that maintenance stage, which brings us to really I guess the core of our conversation today, which is when we relapse, right? And, Tasha and I saw this a lot when we worked in cardiac rehab. People would come to us, and 3 to 6 months in, they would say, I've got this. I got to go out there and do it on my own and brave the wild, wild west. And I'm going to do this. I think that in behavior change, we actually say, when you find a solution, don't abandon that solution, stick with it. We all have this idea that when we find a solution, we somehow need to change what that is and hope that we rise to the next occasion. But oftentimes what Tash and I would see is people who are coming regularly, feeling confident in it, and then at kind of the 6 month mark, slowly started to drop away from the behavior, because it's almost like kind of giving up our guard. We kind of step away from the edge of the cliff and we get a little bit too comfortable and we think, what's this? What's that? It's not really going to make that big of a difference, but in fact, it does. So many of us believe that once a habit is actually established, that it will somewhat endure the test of time. And if we think of a habit like a relationship, a habit is almost a relationship that we have with our habit. But if you think of relationships, all relationships take work. All relationships aren't just from day one going to stand the test of time. They say that a strong relationship is, or all relationships go through storms. It's who are the two people that are willing to stand under the umbrella and endure those storms together, right? And so how much are you willing to endure in order to maintain this routine in your life? And the key to relapse is catching it early, identifying early that something is slipping away. Just as in a relationship, you want to identify what it is so you can communicate better or whatever has to happen. That's the same with us and the behavior that we are trying to establish. We want to act quickly, and we don't take the elevator all the way down to pre-contemplation or contemplation again. If it means that we've taken a little bit of a step back, that's okay. That's normal. That's part of this process. Let's identify it and take action and move forward.
Yeah. Sara, I'd love to add a little point to your maintenance category, which I think you sort of highlighted, and I just want to reiterate, is that we create a behavior and it kind of has like a set of parameters around it, kind of like how we talked about habit coupling last week. I apologize. I'm doing very poorly with my push-ups. I need an accountability buddy here if somebody's looking for one.
Well, I'm not about to go into the bathroom when you're in there, but I will ask you, and I did ask you, and you did say that you weren't doing push-ups, but I will commit to doing push-ups every time that I use the washroom, Tasha. Is that what our trigger was?
We digress.
Okay.
What we were talking about was that maintenance stage. We kind of have these behaviors that are set up around it. So when we start changing the environment, the people, the time, all of these different things around our behavior, we increase the chances of going into a relapse and having a setback, because these are kind of the glue that hold something together. So when Sara was saying the point about when something is working, to keep going with that, those are all those little pieces. The time of the day I do this is working for me. This is working for me. That is working for me. When we start to change those things, then we have to start adapting a little bit more, and we can see things fall apart very quickly. So the key, as Sara said, is to catch this early.
And Tasha, can I add something in there, because it reminds me of something that you often talk about, and that is that we have to really take our new behavior through all of the seasons of change. And right now we're talking about the stages of change, but the seasons of change, because sometimes, and again, Tasha and I see this often, it can take that one little vacation that we go away on to kind of abandon what we have done. We feel like we're in maintenance and we're strong and we're good, and it takes that one little thing and we have a relapse. So that's where if you've heard Tasha talk about, make sure you really have to practice a behavior through all 4 seasons of the year to really feel a level of confidence. And we still can't let our guard down, but to really feel that level of confidence.
Yeah. So it's important to understand that you're going to cycle through those stages. So stop the self-talk that's all about I blew it. No more I blew it. It's that, oh, I see that I've entered the relapse stage. How can I turn this around and get back to action? See, much more positive spin there. And again, we talk about in the clinic all the time that failure, I know I do these little air quotes a lot, but failure or the setback or the relapse is just part of the process. What do I need to learn in order to grow and get back on track? That's all we need to figure out from the setback. So we want to recognize, and we use kind of the idea of a slip, a slide, and a stop. So a slip is just a little slip, right? A little something. And it might be, for example, I've missed an exercise session, just one. Things kind of fell apart. It got busy. I don't feel terribly motivated to me. It's a little slip, right? But when it turns into a slide, now we're going for a while, right? And so now that one exercise session becomes 2, or it becomes 3. And that's when I start to identify, maybe something's going on here that I have to pay attention before I hit the stop stage. And the stop stage is kind of, you've let it go so long that now you're kind of starting back in those earlier stages of the model. You kind of got to get back to preparation. And when you got to get back to preparation, it's a little bit more of a slog. So again, once we've missed a healthy behavior a few times, it indicates that we're slipping away from that action or maintenance and we're falling into relapse. So the key is awareness here, just to be aware when that's happening, because that's how you catch it early. And then you can have a little chit chat with yourself, be that wise advisor to yourself and go, okay, I know that we missed that one time, but we're going to hop back on here. It's important so I don't end up in a slide. It was just a slip.
Yeah. And again, the key is to be aware of a slip and to course correct before it turns into a slide. So to use our example of missing an exercise session, trying to get it in as soon as we can helps us to stay on track. And how many of you can attest to that it feels really good if you miss a session? That's why we have it available for you to move a session. You move it and you get it done and you feel really good about it. How many of you can say, yeah, I've done that before. I've moved my session. I get it done. I'm able to take care of it, right? And then how many of you have experienced where you go, I have a couple moved sessions now. They're kind of piling up on me. How many of you have felt that before? Yeah, and so when we actually find ourselves in a bit of a slide, so missing multiple sessions, and we all do, so no blame, but the key is to really stop ourselves before we hit the bottom. Again, going back to contemplation, pre-contemplation, by really regrouping and getting back on track. So it's a good idea to plan for a relapse by actually setting what are the triggers and thinking about this before you even find yourself in the situation. And these triggers can really serve as more of kind of an indication that you need to regroup, take a deep breath, initiate your prevention plan, and get back on track. So I'm going to give you some examples of some relapse triggers. But again, we all adhere to our own ideas better than the ideas of others. So really important that you are able to know what your triggers are. So it might be not exercising in a week. I personally use that. So I love how in our achievement wall in your member portal, and if you haven't gone into your achievement wall yet, I encourage you to do so, because one of the things in there is week streaks. And it shows you week after week after week how many weeks you have been participating. And for me, I know that that would be a big trigger for me if I didn't continue to accumulate my badge and that my number was growing. I don't want to go back to 1 week. I don't want to go to 0 weeks. I'm at something like 98 weeks or something like that, and I'm not willing to lose that number. So for me, exercising in a week is a trigger. Maybe it's eating out more than twice a week or something like that. That third time of eating out is kind of, that's over the edge for me. I need to step back. Sleeping less than 8 hours, 2 nights in a row, maybe is a trigger for you to set a plan, take a deep breath, and identify that this is something important. You have to get back on track. Or maybe it's missing a daily gratitude or meditation session, more than 3 times a week. Whatever the triggers are for you, it is important for you to identify it, because we can then have a compass as to how we're going to guide ourselves to get back on track, or else everything starts to feel lukewarm and we kind of forget where we came from and where we're going. And that's how we fall back to the beginning.
Yeah, I love that example with the sessions that you gave, Sara, because it really goes from feeling empowered. I made it up, right? Like I saw the slip, I made it up, and feeling it from an empowering situation. Whereas when they start to pile up, it's stressful, right? And even psychologically stressful. There's really no stress on your body, but you start going, oh shoot, there's 3. How am I going to fit it in? Da, da, da. I should have this. I can't make it work. And that's when you get this whole internal dialogue sort of cascading down. And it's easy to let that get on top of you. So I thought that was such a great example. So we're going to invite you, pick one behavior that either you're in action or you're in maintenance on right now. So it could be your exercise. It could be something that you're doing with your diet. It could be your water drinking, your gratitude practice. There's a million things we do in a day. And choose a hard line for yourself. What is it? What is the trigger that you're saying to yourself? If I hit this, so Sara's week streak is a perfect example. I'm going to lose that badge, that number, or, just being accountable to yourself. Have you ever noticed if you miss 2 sessions at Live Well, suddenly you start hearing from the staff? Hi, it's Tasha calling from Live Well, just calling to let you know, Sara, we missed you today at your session, right? That's something that we have as part of the program. That's a way for you to go, oh, I'm hitting a little trigger, a little slip there. It's time to get back on track, to make that a priority. Because if I keep letting it go, it's just going to be harder and harder and harder. But you can do it with any behavior. You don't need that as somebody else. You can recruit somebody else to help you. You can have a badge system, some sort of external trigger, but you can also just have that internal agreement with yourself that when I see this happening, this is the action I am going to take to keep myself and get myself back on track. Because it's, again, so hard to climb back up from the bottom. Think of how hard you've worked to get where you are with these behaviors, right? You've worked hard. You should be proud. But it's so easy to let it slide, right? It's so easy to kind of blink, open your eyes and go, whoa, I kind of lost my way on that one. And we hear that all the time with people. So it's really important to catch those slips and those slides before they come a stop.
And so what can you do to live well this week? Well, first of all, meet yourself weekly. So this week, make a relapse plan. What behaviors will serve to trigger you to notice that you are on a slippery slope? Identify maybe 1, 2, 3 things and create that relapse plan. And when choosing behaviors to practice this week, consider your readiness, which is directly related to the confidence you rate in your plan. So that's where we ask you to rate your confidence out of 10. Again, you can log into the member portal to do this, and you can create your weekly practice plan. And I encourage you to find a quiet place. Take a few minutes to stop and breathe. Life can be busy. Life is getting busier as we are starting to slowly come out of COVID over the next couple months, and that can feel overwhelming. So take that time to find a quiet place. And of course, make a date with exercise. Whether you are live streaming with us, using our on demand program, or coming into our clinic, don't forget to take your dose of the very best medicine, which is exercise.
So don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel to catch all of the replays of our live episodes. We will be back next week on July 15th. And I forget what our topic is, Sarah. I didn't write it down.
It's going to be a surprise.
It's going to be a surprise. And you can ask the staff in clinic. They'll know what it is. If you're interested, I'm sorry. I should have been more organized there. And we just want to thank you all for joining us today. If you're not a member and you're watching this video as a replay, we invite you to be our guest. You can visit us at www.livewellclinic.ca to learn more about how we can host you as a guest in one of our clinics. All right.
Thanks for bearing with my background noise, everybody.
Thanks for showing up, even though you're not in the office today, Sarah. It just really shows how much you love to see the members and talk about this stuff, right?
Absolutely. Yes. Okay, thank you, everyone.
Oh, if you're still on, thank you, John. Next week is the importance of resistance training. This is a good one. We got lots to talk about. I'll see you then.